Joining us now are Doctors Marin Wood and Robert Townsend. Thank you so much for joining us. You conducted a fascinating study called The Many Careers of History PhDs. Talk a little bit about what the goal was and the methodology.
Well, the purpose of the study was really to provide a better picture of where people are ending up with PhDs. One of the questions we've always had is we've understood sort of what the, how many jobs roughly there are, how many people with who are receiving PhDs, but sort of what happens between those two lines has always been a bit of a mystery. And so really what we wanted to do was to hire somebody who would be able to research, to take a group of history PhDs, track them down and find out where they were. And so Marin was our researcher of choice and did a fabulous job in terms of finding, tracking them down.
So as far as methodology, the AHA keeps a database of everyone who completes a dissertation in history, and Rob and the staff at the AHA was able to take a sample of 2,500 people, and they were able to cross that sample with the member directory, which left about 1,300 people that we didn't have current information for. And so I sat down and using my skills as a historian began to track people using publicly available data. So basically, anything that you can imagine where a person's career information might be listed. So conference panels, LinkedIn, Facebook, ratemyprofessor.com, university directories. Just you have to be creative for a lot of these people. 70% are pretty straightforward, but there's a good 30% that take a little bit of diggings and creative keyword searching.
Well, sounds like the study was extensive. Tell me a little bit about the headline of the results and your findings.
Well, I think for us, the biggest surprise was just how many people were still in, well, how many people actually were getting tenure-track positions. I mean, in a lot of ways, the discussion on the web and social media is that, only about a third of people are getting tenure-track jobs relative to the number of people who are ending up in non-tenure-track jobs. And what we found was a good half of the people who had received PhDs were in tenure-track jobs, and about 20% were ending up in non-tenure-track jobs. Even after about a decade, and that a good 25% had ended up in most cases, really good jobs outside of academia, outside of teaching positions, and that was, in a lot of ways, a big part of what the study was for, to help us really get a better sense of what sort of jobs people are getting outside of academia.
I think one of the other, for me at least, surprising pieces, it was the relative lack of mobility for those that were actually ending up on the academic job or getting academic jobs. We found that about 60% of people who ended up in academic positions were either working in their same region where they earned a PhD or an adjacent region. And so one of the things that I learned from this study is we always talk about placement studies as though we were going to learn about non-academic opportunities or post-professoriate opportunities. But one of the things that you learn very quickly is that we actually don't really have a very good sense about how the academic job market is working. And so large-scale placement studies like this can shed light on the academic as well as post-academic opportunities and how those job markets function.
So for folks who are worried about a career post-PhD, sounds like there is some really good news.
Yes. Well, especially for fields outside of U.S. history. U.S. history, in some ways, is an area where there's really the largest gap between the number of jobs available and the number of people receiving PhDs. So in all other fields, it was over 60 to 70% of those folks were ending up in teaching positions. But conversely, the people in U.S. history, a lot of them, a much higher proportion of them were ending up in jobs where they could really use their history in historical sites, doing research in terms of different history work. And so they were actually being able to use their history work in direct, sort of a direct and applied way. So it wasn't as if they were sort of taking that PhD and then essentially wasting their efforts. And I think that was one of the good outcomes of this as well.
And for those people that are interested in careers beyond the professoriate, what we found was that people had good jobs. When you look at the job titles, which is one of the things we collected in our study, you have research analysts, directors of programs, deans, assistant deans, and these are good jobs. People are working for themselves, they're consultants, they're working for the federal government. These are good middle class jobs. And so for the 25% who are graduated from 2006 to 2009 who are still in adjunct positions or contingent faculty positions, I hope that the study shows them that there are other choices that they can make other than staying in contingent faculty positions, and that those people can start moving towards these good jobs that will pay them a middle-class salary.
Sounds fascinating. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.